This is the year of the Linux desktop. Of course it's not. Come on, how many times have you heard that? How many videos so far have you watched this year that said 2024 is the year of the Linux desktop? Let me know in the comments down below. Because today I want to talk about why 2024 is not going to be the year of the Linux desktop, and probably why no year will be the year of the Linux desktop, short of some really interesting things going on in the world. So before we get into this, I do want to talk about the power of Linux right now. These are January 2023 stats. They were re-reported in September of 2023, but as of about a year ago, 47% of all people who are developers use Linux as their primary desktop. In fact, of those who are developers, the majority of them use only Linux. A few of them use multiple. SpaceX uses Linux. That could be a bad thing for Linux. It could be a good thing for Linux, depending on certain things. But they have launched 65 missions. Now, that's as of then. They've probably launched many more in 2023, so that number is probably out of date. 90% of all Hollywood movie effects have a Linux involved somewhere along the basis. Some form of Linux software are used. And Linux right now, as far as the desktop is concerned, despite completely dominating in the website and the cloud server market, is only 2.68% of the Linux desktop, is Linux, tailing slightly behind Chrome OS, which I don't know if that's going to get better or worse. But with that, we're going to talk about 5 reasons why 2024 is not going to be the year of the Linux desktop, and we'll get into a few bonus ideas at the end. What is it going to take, and what result are we going to see at the end of 2024 as far as Linux adoption? So, number 1, why is this not going to be the year of the Linux desktop? Has it ever been the year of the Linux desktop? Obviously it hasn't. Every year we have these new videos, mostly because the progress in Linux is moving so well. Everyone's like, wow, Linux is so good now. Everyone's going to jump onto this because who in their right mind uses Windows? And I understand. I do not know how anybody in their right mind uses Windows. And honestly, maybe it's the reality is with the given circumstances in our world, maybe nobody is in their right mind. As I've been working with a church down here, and I've been helping them with the soundboard and setting up OBS and stuff, and they're using Windows. They're on Windows 11. This operating system is so annoying. Like, when did things change where the best sign of an operating system is the operating system got out of your way? Windows 11 injects itself into everything you're doing. Like, dude, this is the antithesis of what makes a good operating system. But people still will not change for more reasons I'm going to get into. But that is point 1. Why? It has never been the year of the Linux desktop. Now, I'm not a completely abstract to the idea that it could possibly happen, but there's that. Number 2, Linux is still mostly unknown to non-techies. There is, outside of going on to YouTube and being like, Windows sucks, what other operating system can I run? The average person does not know how that Linux even exists. They don't know how to switch. And the reality is, most people don't even understand the term operating system. If you go to the average person and you say, hey, what operating system are you using? They're like, yeah. And you usually have to clarify, are you using Windows or Mac? Oh, I'm using Windows. Oh, I'm using Mac. But if you just say, hey, what operating system do you use? Most people look at you like a cow looking at a new gate. Huh? You know? The operating system is the thing that underlines the computer. Most people do not know what that is, and because of that, most people are really only interested in turning the button on the computer and then doing something on the system. And for anybody who's been annoyed by this, haha, just noticed it. All right, so that's number 2. Linux is still mostly unknown to non-techies. Most people do not know what it is. If you say, oh, your phone runs on Linux, as long as you're not running an Apple or something, nobody knows that. Number 3, we still cannot buy Linux from a big box store because most people are not going to go to a Linux specialty online store and order a computer with Linux unless they're a developer and they want a computer with Linux and don't want to have to get something, have to pay for the Windows license in the process of purchasing the item and then wipe Windows out entirely. The developer will probably be going to System76 et al. To buy a computer with Linux, but the rest of the people are going to go to Best Buy or Walmart or Staples or some other big box store, or you might go onto Amazon and buy a computer in this day and age. Can you buy Linux computers on Amazon reputably? I don't know. Honestly, I just thought of that as I was looking through my notes, so not really sure. All right, but we can't go into the big box store and just buy a computer with Linux. So the average normie who wants to buy a new computer, they go to Walmart, they go to Best Buy, they go to Staples, and then they go up to the sales guy like, I don't know anything about computers, sell me a computer. And then the guy's going to sell them on the Mac or on the Windows computer. And that's really going to be your only option. And because of that, the adoption process for Linux is much lower than it is for most other places. So that is number 3, is you still cannot buy Linux computers in a big box store. This leads us to number 4. It does not cross the mind of the average person that you can even change the operating system on your computer. To the average person, they buy a phone. Oh, I am stuck with whatever the phone gives me. You buy a computer. I'm stuck with whatever is on this computer. The average person has no concept that you can take your computer, wipe out the hard drive, and install a different operating system. The average person will be like, that would completely break everything. If you even say to them, hey, we can take your computer and we can make it work a lot better by installing Linux on it, they'll be like, new gate? Come on. Because it doesn't even cross their mind. And then, of course, even if they do allow you to do that, many of them fall into the situation where they may not know how to manage it. And that raises in and of itself. Like I had a friend that we converted one of their computers to Linux and they use it for a media server and such. And for a while they were doing the GUI updates through Endeavor OS, which weren't actually doing anything, but they didn't know it wasn't doing anything. I get back in and look at the system. I'm like, you're running a really old version of this piece of software, because I was running the same version on one of my systems. And I was like, you should be running something else. So I go in, look at the system, and yeah, it was one of those issues where something was messed up and Endeavor needed to do a manual override on one of the updates. And your average person doesn't know that. Now, you hear this and you go, I don't know if I want to switch to Linux because of that. Don't let that disturb you. Just take a little bit of time to learn how to know if your system is upgrading. That is certainly a thing. But that is point 4. It doesn't even cross the mind of the average person that you could take this computer, you get a little notification, oh, Windows 10 is expiring, you have to upgrade to Windows 7, but it doesn't meet the requirements. And you're like, well, I've got to throw the thing into the landfill now, I guess. No, you need to throw it in the landfill. You need to wipe out that nonsense operating system that keeps on popping you notifications anyway. You need to install a different operating system on it. But the average person doesn't know that. So it takes a personal connection with somebody else in Linux to be able to do that. And then you have to have the patience to actually help them manage all of that. And our number 5 reason here why Linux will not become the desktop of choice in 2024. The average person simply goes with the flow. There's a 20/80 rule. It's sometimes debated more. I've seen 5/95. I've seen 10/90. I've seen 80/20 is talked about the most. I think right now, as far as the Linux stuff, the average person, they are going to complain. They are going to mourn the loss of the way they've always wanted to do things. But they're still going to walk right along into the slaughterhouse. And that's what they're going to do. That's not necessarily a criticism. There's several reasons. Number 1, it does take a little bit of time to figure this stuff out. And the average person, they are pushed to work so hard. Many people right now have to take on extra jobs to be able to live to the same standard of living. You come home, you're exhausted, and all you want to do is turn on the TV and lose yourself. That is the average person. Also, people will simply deal with the pain. Windows keeps on giving you annoying pop-ups. You're like, I hate these annoying pop-ups, but you just deal with it. You deal with it. And then, of course, some people they don't want to consider the other options. You might be like, well, I mean, switch to Linux. Okay, I don't want to switch to Linux. I'd have to learn all those commands by typing. And I'm like, no, you really don't. I've actually met people in the last half a decade, last couple of years, that I say, oh, I run Linux. Oh, I could never do that. You have to learn so many commands. Like, dude, I barely touch the terminal. Barely. Like, no, that's not the case. You have to use it. So what operating system you use? Windows. Yeah, I use Linux exclusively. I don't touch the terminal much, okay? But that really is that fifth reason, is that people are just going to go with the flow. They're just going to do what is available. They're just going to do the option. And until we solve some of these other issues, until the pain becomes high enough, that they want to flee Windows, they will then figure out what it takes to flee Windows. When people recognize you can change the operating system on your computer, they will have a greater chance of changing. When you can go into a local store and buy a computer, you can play with a computer with Linux, you have a knowledgeable person who can walk you through what are the differences between Windows and Mac and Linux, and is this the choice you might want to take? We're not going to see that. And until Linux is known to be a desktop environment in general for non-techie people, when we solve those problems, we will solve the issues. So as far as moving ahead in 2024, what are my general predictions and what is it going to take people to convert? Well, the first general prediction is that we are going to see a creep up in the adoption rate. We might even overtake Chromebooks, as a lot of people are becoming more suspicious of Google in our current age. We're seeing this in a lot of we just saw a big settlement in the Incognito website lawsuit, the Incognito browser mode lawsuit. We just saw some more other privacy things. We're seeing Google versus Epic. All of these things are painting Google in a negative light, and even in non-techie environments, I am starting to see a few more people going, let's avoid Google if we can. A perfect example is the camp that I take a week off of work to go do work at a camp. Last year, I usually manage, I'll put together the slideshow presentation and accumulate all the pictures for everybody, sort through all the bad ones and things like that, and get everybody a good packet of images. I said, what's our best method for distributing these guys? And they're like, we got to find some option that does not involve using Google. And these are a bunch of non-tech people, but they did not want images of the kids in the camp anywhere attached to Google services. Not like online, anybody could go in, but even on Google Drive as a password protected file, they didn't even want that. I was so proud of them. So fortunately, I have enough networking infrastructure. I just went ahead and created a little server for several weeks to let people download it, whoever wanted it. And so, but the thing is that more people are becoming suspicious of this. So I expect that the number of people buying Chromebooks is going to decrease. And I also suspect that the majority of that Chromebook user base is actually schools and academic settings. I don't see a lot of people buying a Chromebook and using this as their major device. I know people that have Chromebooks, but they're not major devices as it is. So I'm going to expect that this year, by the end of this year, we might actually see the Linux desktop overtake Chrome OS, and we might even see a little bit more of a boost to the market share as more and more people are becoming disillusioned with Windows 10. Some people are not wanting to deal with it any longer, and so we're going to see what that's going to look like. But nevertheless, that is definitely going to be something that we're going to want to keep an eye on. And what is it going to take? Well, it's going to take the people on the very edges of the bell curve to get frustrated enough to say, look, I'm done. I'm out. I do not want to deal with Windows anymore. I don't want to deal with Mac anymore. I want to find an alternative. And it's going to take them not only realizing that, but taking, again, going back to point 5, the time and the initiative to learn. One good example, Stex and Hammer. Back in the United States, Stex and Hammer is he talks frequently about the frustration with Windows, and he even says, you know, I think I forget which system he's using. Actually, he's using 10. I know, because some of his videos, you hear the sounds of Windows 10 going in the background. It makes me like cringe every time. It's like, get off of that stuff. You know, but he's even said many times, I got to figure out how to switch to Linux. I got to figure out how to switch to Linux. Sticks, I'll help you. Okay, I'll help you. Contact me. We'll help you get switched to Linux. I'll make a trip up to Vermont if you want. I mean, I got a van. I'll make it up there. But that's really the thing, is it's going to take those fringe cases, A, being sick enough of Windows to switch, and B, taking the time to learn how to do the basic management. So that really, in a nutshell, is why 2024 is not going to be the year of the Linux desktop. So let me know your thoughts about all of those. Add your ideas and your reasons, and tell me why you think it might be the reason that the year of the Linux desktop. Let me know also those in the comments down below. We'll see what type of discussion we can get. Anyway, guys, it is becoming sunset in my beautiful desert. I hope you enjoy the scenery in the background here. With that, thank you for watching, and hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.
Thank you for watching this video from Switched to Linux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at Patreon at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.